Hello and welcome to episode 263 of Checkpoint Chat. It's that time of the year. It's game of the year, discussions, deliberations, and as always, I'm joined by the man who plays more games than anyone else, Matty Figueroa.
On the whole planet? That's not true.
In the whole planet, definitely, absolutely. Weren't you telling me in 2022 you finished 40-something games?
2021.
You finished an average of 3 games a month.
COVID year.
4 games a month, sorry.
COVID year.
That's fucking insane, actually.
COVID year. We were all at home doing nothing.
4 games a month. That's 1 a week,
Yeah.
my man.
Well, you make it sound like I'm playing 4 JRPGs a month. Some games can be finished in an hour. Some games can be finished in 3 hours. Some games
don't finish.
100 plus hours. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
I played a lot of...
Exactly.
I'm sure I played a lot of Counter-Strike that year as well. A game you cannot finish. A bit of Dota. A bit of whatever. Maybe I judging me.
We were discussing just prior to recording that things have slowed down for both of us. We've both had fairly busy the past couple of years, some people got married, some people moved to another country, things happen, life happens. And so the amount of games we've both been able to get to reduced. In your case, not so drastically reduced. In my case,
it's way
drastically
reduced.
Yeah, I only played 20-something games this year, never mind finished.
Sounds like... Well, you also got married this year, which
exactly.
Itself, exactly. And you didn't move this year. You're planning on
we're going to move.
See,
yeah, we're going to move. It's just a busy year, and a lot of the games are getting longer and longer and longer. So a lot of the ones I did finish are just very long ones. But yeah, with that in mind, we are here to talk about Game of the Year. If you have a great memory, you will notice that we are wearing the same clothes as last week.
I changed my shirt. Notice, we were talking
about. This will be probably our last episode for the year, as is usual. So we're going to go out with a bang. Previously, we've usually just listed our top 5 games like individually throughout the year and spoken a bit about them. This year we're still going to do that, but we thought it'd be fun to have some ridiculous and interesting categories to go along with it that have their own nominees that we will try and talk about and deliberate on a single winner for each of those categories. So still individual top 5s, but these categories will kind of be just fun selections for winners. Again, competition is cool for now. We've got a bunch of categories. I'll just run through them quickly. None of them are too serious. Some of them are kind of interesting and fun. So we've got best game that not enough people played. We then have the best game to play with friends, the best Astrobot gimmick, the best game to get to in 2025, best remake or remaster, best game with an even better soundtrack. Those are the ones we are going to discuss right now, starting off with the best game that not enough people played. The nominees that we gathered are Prince of Persia: The Lost Crown, Dragon's Dogma 2, The Legend of Zelda: Echoes of Wisdom, Stellar Blade, Star Wars Outlaws, and Tactical Breach Wizards. Matthew,
best game that not enough people have played.
Yeah, so I think this is a game that we think has been a very good game from this year that not enough people have spoken about or played or kind of flew under the radar.
I mean,
so
this is easy for me.
It's easy for you. Let's start off with ones that you think wouldn't win this category. I think for example, I put Star Wars Outlaws here because I think it's a game that wasn't necessarily played by not enough people, but wasn't a game that was given a fair enough shot by a lot of people. I think it's a really, really solid action game, a really solid stealth game that just kind of understands the Star Wars universe in a way that I don't think a lot of Star Wars games have in the past, and it's just different in that you're not playing as a Jedi. You know what I mean? You're playing as a scoundrel, a smuggler, and I think it's just a fun game. we had a category here that we couldn't fill out, so we ended up turfing it. But it was like the best 7 out of 10 game. This is the best 7 out of 10 game of the year.
I didn't see
It
that
is a
category. What a great category.
I could only think of it was literally a category made for this game. Like if it had stayed, that would be the winner. It is imperfect. It is messy. It is a hell of a lot of fun. But I don't think it's a game that not enough people play, or the best game that not enough people played. So I'm just going to remove it from the list.
You're removing it? I thought we were keeping it.
No, sorry, I'm gonna strike it out. Is what I'm saying. I think I said my piece about it.
Okay, but you're not gonna down that hill. Okay.
No. That's cool. That's what I'm saying. Yeah.
Okay. Tactical Breach Wizards is something I'd love to play, but if I'm putting it on a list with all these other games I haven't played, it's got to go.
Sure, that would be my actual winner, but okay.
I'll tell you why, because I enjoy games like this, but it's not my favorite genre of game. Like a good example is it Into the Breach? It's that similar turn-based game. Like,
Into the Breach, and this is more like XCOM, but yeah.
I can see that's even worse. XCOM. I can appreciate XCOM for what it is, but I hate playing XCOM because it.
Really? I thought you loved those games. That's interesting.
I'll play Elden Ring and all these difficult games, Celeste, until I'm blue in the face. But XCOM is like the one game that genuinely makes me stress that I'm gonna like lose the soldier, and I'm like, damn it. So those kinds of games, I'm a bit off.
But this is what's glorious about Tactical Breach Wizards. You never lose people because it's more story based, and you can rewind.
Okay, well, we'll see. You sold me on that. But on this list, if I had to,
no, I get you.
It's not the big enough one.
To me, it's the game that like wasn't spoke about nearly enough for its.
For how good it is.
For how good it is, it's a game that I think a lot of people should play. Like I said, even if you aren't like super well versed in the genre, and even if you put it down to like its easiest difficulty, just for the story and the characters, like top tier characters, really funny story, just a good time. So I would implore people get to it, but I can see why it gets the red. I'm just striking these through.
Dragon's Dogma 2, too long. I'm like, I don't have time for 100-hour RPG, having just put in so much time into Metaphor and Final Fantasy Rebirth earlier this year. I don't have time for those long games, please.
I think it's a game that I really want to get to, and we'll get to that category later on. I do think maybe it's a game that actually a lot of people played. Like if I think of just our immediate friend circle, there were a handful of people who played. I know Mick got super into this game.
It, yeah.
I do think like a lot of people have played it. I think Dragon's Dogma as a franchise is still not like wow, big premiere sort of IP. But I think there's if I look at this list, I think there's two here that I could see as winners. I mean, aside from Tactical Breach Wizards, which got nuked from orbit here. So I'm going to take out Dragon's Dogma 2. I think the other one that I think doesn't really belong here is Stellar Blade. Just because that game sold so fucking well. Yeah. Like, people played this game. So I think it's more on here just because you were the only one I know of who played it in a friend group.
Darren actually also played it and enjoyed it.
He did. Yeah, he did enjoy it. I forget about that. Okay.
Struck it out.
So you see, I don't think it belongs here.
See, so last two, The Legend of Zelda, Echoes of Wisdom, and Prince of Persia, The Lost Crown. For me, The Legend of Zelda, Echoes of Wisdom, I think it still has a fan base. It's a Nintendo game. So many people are going to play
that. It's a Legend of Zelda.
100%. Which, honestly, Prince of Persia, The Lost Crown, for me, is the one I'm like, more people must play this game. It is shocking how good this game is and how few people have spoken. Or the only people who have spoken about it are people who have actually played it and gone, shit, this is a really good game. Would recommend.
I nearly just lost my wedding ring there. I tend to agree. I think The Legend of Zelda Echoes of Wisdom is on here just because I think for A Legend of Zelda there was very little talk about it, and I think that's because it's like quite experimental in its mechanics. It's very different, you know. The Zeldas that are spoken about now are your Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom. Yeah, it's a game I still want to get back to, but yeah, I agree. Prince of Persia: The Lost Crown is definitely a game, you know, that fell victim to coming out in January, being a Metroidvania, not visually like striking. So when people say you eat with your eyes, I think you play games with your eyes too. Well,
Eating with
most
your
of the
eyes,
times
please see a doctor.
you might need to. Well, yes, don't eat lemons or chili with your eyes. You will die. I think The Lost Crown has a lot going for it mechanically. I think it falters in other places, and that's why people didn't really stick with it. But I do think it's a phenomenal game this year that very clearly not enough people played because it didn't sell super well, and it kind of, that team has kind of been dissolved now as well, which is a real shame. So I think you're happy with that winning this category.
100%.
Prince Persia, The Lost Crown, the best game that not enough people played.
Nice. Okay,
next category. Best game to play with friends. We've got Helldivers 2, Call of Duty Black Ops 6, Deadlock, Pokemon TCG Pocket, Diablo 4, Vessel of Hatred. Okay. I'm going to take up Pokemon. I just put it here because I wanted to say Pokemon fucking rules. And I think this game is fun.
Who's playing this with friends, though?
Okay, listen. I love picking cards. I love doing wonder picks, which is still a friend-associated thing. I love getting cards from my friends. I also hate it when I wonder pick a great pack from my good pal Matty and I draw absolute garbage.
You can't blame me. Can't blame me for that.
The 1500th Ponyta or fucking Grimer. Just give me my EX Charizard, please, for the love of God.
I'm so sorry.
Pokemon TCG is good.
It's
fun.
It is
good. Not the best game to play with friends.
Yeah, it's not something I'm gonna rock up to your house like, hey, you wanna play some Pokemon? I mean,
it's a fun game to play online, but it reminds me a lot of Pokemon Go in that it's more a flashpoint and a social thing to talk about than actually play with other people.
Yeah. I mean, if we're going to eliminate all of these, yes, there's going to be a long episode, I'm warning you, because we could talk about this for so long. Best game to play with friends, Diablo 4, Vessel of Hatred. Listen, Diablo is a great co-op game.
I put this here because you got into it this year.
I know, so let me tell you a story. I played Diablo 4, I was like, man, this is some good shit. I haven't played Vessel of Hatred yet, but my good pal Brad also, it's like, Diablo 4, what a game. We should totally play together. Play it together once for half an hour. Never again. Moved. Yeah, just because he moved on to play something else. I moved on to play something else.
Oh, okay. I thought you got super into it.
I don't know. I played it. I enjoyed it, but I just finished it and then I moved on to other stuff.
Okay.
I got pulled away by Metaphor and these other big games.
Fair enough.
Deadlock, I'll say I've played a lot. I've played 30, 40 hours with friends. So drop in the ocean if you're thinking big Dota numbers. I mean, the game is still early access, came out a couple of months ago. Really good game. But the problem is it's that Dota thing of it's very difficult to understand from the get-go. I mean, I was saying to John Michael, just this week where I feel the game's finally clicked after 30 hours where I'm I understand how the laning works, how I should be roaming. I understand what some items do. I know what some of the heroes actually do now. But it took me that long to get there.
Then they might just change so much. And
the game is in a state now where it's weekly. A hero's strong this week, next week they're the worst hero because they've been nerfed to hell and back. So I think when this game launches, you and I must definitely play it because if you enjoy, it's got the MOBA mechanics, but it's a shooter. It's really good.
I thought you were going to say if you enjoy Dota, I'd be like, no, absolutely not.
So strike that one off, which leaves us with Helldivers 2 and Call of Duty Black Ops 6.
So Call of Duty Black Ops 6 is a game I've briefly played multiplayer, but it's also the game on this list that I'm if I had to look at these 5 and be which multiplayer game, if you had to sit down now and play, it would be Call of Duty because it's newer, a lot of people are playing it, it's got really interesting movement, and it feels Call of Duty goes in cycles where there's 2 or 3 years where people who are always into multiplayer will play it, but then there's those special years where everyone gets into Call of Duty. It's oh, you think that's this year? It's back, I think that's this year. I just haven't played enough of it to say that it would be my favorite multiplayer game or game to play with other people this year.
Same.
So
if I want to
agree,
if I just want to go with what I would recommend to anyone who's not played it, it would be Helldivers 2. If
100%.
I was presented this, if somebody said, here's a list of 5 games, I want to play one with you, it would be Helldivers from this list. It's hands down.
I do think, sadly, it's a game that I fell off of. Like you played a lot more than me, but when it came out, played a lot with friends. I even like played with friends who I haven't played multiplayer games with in like years. It's a game that like I think everyone got into, and also just a complete surprise because I don't think anyone prior to it coming out was expecting it to be such a big splash. It's a game, like thinking about Game of the Year stuff now, it kept popping back into my mind, and I'm like, I really should play this again.
It's good. I really enjoyed it.
I had the best time playing it. Played with you, played with John Michael, played with a bunch of other friends. It's just, and even then, even when you're not playing with people, the way it makes you play with other people and makes it so seamless and fun is just great. So it's not necessarily it's not just the best game to play with friends. It's like the best game to make friends in.
Yeah. So
Helldivers. It's all the Bile Titans we killed along the way.
Oh my god. Good god.
Helldivers 2, best game to play with friends.
100%. Next category, best Astro Gimmick. Now you're gonna read the nominees while I timestamp this.
I don't know any of the names of these. I may have forgotten some, so if I get to the end of this list and there's one or two I've missed, please
don't come for us.
Please do add them. Or you can add some. So I've got Shrinking Down. I think it was used in like one level. I thought it was really fun. Got Turning into a Massive Sponge. Really like that one. Monkey Arms. Very straightforward, very fun to use. Booster Bulldog. I have no idea what else to call that. You have a fucking dog on you, and he's just a rocket. Who knows why? And then the Cannonball costume. I hope you know what I'm. It's like when you've got like it almost looks like a black sumo thing, and then when you press R2, you turn into a ball, and you can go over spikes and get shot at stuff, and very fun. Yeah.
Well,
any other ones that you can think of off the top of your head? I forgot about the time dilation one, but that's kind of like
that's like a used
fun
mechanic, I feel, in other games.
Yeah.
I think I'll level with you. What?
I forgot all the like PlayStation specific ones. The like God of War one or Horizon one.
I wouldn't consider
those are separate.
They are. That's a whole category.
And also we know the God of War one is the best of all of those. Like, it's fucking great. Yeah.
Although I do love the Uncharted one, just how the bot laughs every time.
Yeah. Okay. Actually, we could have had a category of just best of those. Like, shit, they're all good.
I will tell you if I could just go straight to one here, the one that made me go like, holy shit, they should make a whole game. It was the Shrinking Down ability.
Yeah, agreed.
Just the scale of like, you shrink down, you like it's like grounded the game. You just like the size of an ant, not an ant, like a little bug walking around this huge world, and then you walk through a little hole in the side of the wall and you grow, go big again. It's like the way they mechanically use that. Like there could be, I mean, maybe it would overstay its welcome, but there could be a whole game built on that sort of thing, I feel, just for the wow moments of like, man, how clever, how cool is that? I mean, like, you walk along outside, you shrink down to jump on a water spout to get onto like a washing line, to zip across it, to go into a vent of a house, go big. Like, it's just so clever. That was the one level I was like, wow, like, Astrobot, what a great game.
No, I totally agree with you. I think what's interesting is that it was only used in one level, but the complexity of that level probably indicates why that was the case, because I think so much thought went into how does this work as a level that you can traverse normal sized and shrunk. And sure, there's certain instances where I have to be shrunken down to fit through this to progress, or I have to be big, or, this and that. But like the way you can explore those spaces in both modes, so to speak, is just so interesting. And I think the way the level conforms to your sort of comical thinking around there is also fun. Like, if I'm not mistaken, when you're in the room that you go into, if you're like under the bed and then you suddenly go big, it like topples the bed, or there's like a bot that's in there that you pop out of. It's like you're constantly thinking like, what if I shrink down, go in here, and then unshrink? Like, will this break, or will this do something interesting? And 9 times out of 10, that's exactly what happens. Like, it also has the coolest physics moment for me, where there's the one bot or the one puzzle piece that you can only get to by shrinking down and jumping on bubbles.
Yeah.
And then because you're small, the bubbles hold your weight, but the way the bubble like conforms to your weight is like so fucking cool. It's just it's done so well. So I'm in full agreement. That's the one that wins. Yeah, I will say that turning into a massive sponge, super satisfying.
Oh yeah,
I love that samurai level. Really fun.
The other abilities are really good. Don't get me wrong. But the shrinking down one is the one that made me go like, whoa, this is some clever thinking. I mean, like it's not an ability, but there are those levels with the light bulbs as well, which is not unique to Astrobot, but it's just cool how I love the thing of like holding a light bulb and it's almost like a horror level.
Yes.
So
like
good.
that Bloodborne theme level and the Castlevania theme level.
Yeah.
No, I like those as well. Cool. As the best Astrobot gimmick, shrinking down. I love that one. It's so good.
Great.
I love Astrobot. Great game. The best game to get to in 2025. These are games that came out in 2024 that neither of us played.
Yeah.
So none of these games are ones that even just one of us played that we absolutely want to get to in 2025. Your nominees are Silent Hill 2, Black Myth Wukong, Indiana Jones and the Whatever Circle. Great Circle, you've told me. Great Circle. Lorelei and the Laser Eyes, Animal Well, Warhammer 40k Space Marine 2, and the assortment of Alan Wake DLC. I mean, it's weird picking a winner here because I want to play all of these games. I think...
Which one would you play first, I guess, is the...
Well, I can tell you which one out of these that I already own that I plan to play really soon, and that's Silent Hill 2. But that is more a case of it was very cheap on Steam. For sale, it was like $400. Yeah, $400 or something like that. So I'm very keen to give that a go. The two... So there were 3 games in my cart at that point. During the Steam sale, I was like, I'm going to get it on my backlog. I had Silent Hill 2, which I pulled the trigger on. I had Lorelei and the Laser Eyes, which I've been wanting to play since it came out. It's just the case of like that game requires your full attention, and I just don't think I was in that space at any point this year. And then Animal Well. Animal Well is like a very puzzly Metroidvania with loads of secrets. That's 100% my shit. Like, those are the 3 out of this list that I absolutely am dying to play. But the one that that I'm probably going to get to first in 2025 will be Silent Hill. So that would be my pick. I don't know out of this list.
I think like Indiana Jones and the Great Circle, that's something I'm probably going to play when it launches. So
that's the same thing for me. I'm probably going to play it next week. Yeah.
You say next week, and then eventually it's 2025, so you better get to it.
I mean, we are like 3 weeks away, so who knows?
Black Myth Wukong is such an interesting one because it's something I know I'd probably enjoy the hell out of, but I just haven't necessarily had the time or the motivation to like play it. It's one of those things I will get to eventually. Animal Well, that's something I want to grab on Switch at some stage. Like at the moment, I'm playing The Messenger because I finished Sea of Stars and I was like, well, I want to play The Messenger, see what
it's the same studio, isn't it?
Yeah, and it's also like a quote unquote sequel to Sea of Stars, not like a hardcore. Well, Sea of Stars was a prequel to The Messenger, so I just wanted to see like what the overlaps were. But that's something, Animal Well is something I would consider playing after The Messenger when I have, room in my Switch to play something. But on this list, Silent Hill 2, you own it, therefore I own it.
Ooh,
I mean, it's
dangerous.
It's something I could play like after Indiana Jones. First thing next year when it's quiet season and not all the new games are out yet.
Yeah.
I mean,
it's also one of those games that's like not super long as well.
I mean, I think it's it's not like an 8-hour experience, I don't think, isn't it?
No, longer? I think it's like sub 20 or
but that's a lot of long time.
I mean, this is the problem. So many games now, like you're fucking signing up immediately for like 40-50 hours, so it's just 20 hours is short nowadays.
Then last thing, I'm very close to finishing Metaphor. The next thing I play on my PlayStation will probably be the Alan Wake DLC this side of the year. So yeah. Let's put Silent Hill for that one.
For me, it's Silent Hill or Animal Well. Like, I think those are the 2 I'm itching the most to get to. But yeah, like I said, Silent Hill 2 is probably the one that, just before go back to work, have a game in early January to play. I've had good experiences with that. Like last year it was Alan Wake 2. The year before that was Signalis, which is kind of like kind of like Silent Hill anyway. So
horror is the thing to play in Jan.
That's also true. January is the horror month for me. Because it's also like the horror of going back to work. Oh no.
Oh no.
So yeah, I think Silent Hill 2 is the one that both of us will likely get to the most. And it's also the one I'm like very excited about, which is interesting considering before it released, I hadn't rated this game at all. I was like, this is going to be a train wreck, you know. I'm curious to see how it does everything better than I expected, put it that way.
Cool.
Silent Hill 2, the best game to get to in 2025. Yes. Second last category here, best remake / remaster. I, in my head, felt like there were way more nominees for here, but it turned out there are only 4. So
I mean, maybe there's more of that.
We have Persona 3 Reload, Final Fantasy Rebirth, which is always also a weird one because that feels like a brand new game. You know what I mean? Silent Hill 2, which I'm going to strike off immediately because neither of us played it. I just wanted to list it there. And then Dead Rising Deluxe.
Dead Rising Deluxe Remaster.
Oh, remaster, sorry.
Remastered. It's Doctor. That's the only way I remember it.
Oh, that's funny. DDR remastered. DDR.
I mean, I know who my one is. Yeah, no surprises there. It's Final Fantasy
Persona 3.
Rebirth.
Oh damn! I thought you were going Persona. Holy shit! No, I'm joking. Persona 3 Reload is super cool in that it takes Persona 3 and puts it in a package that I think is far more interesting to play in 2024. I just never got around to it. I plan to get around to it. Should have put that in games to get to in 2025. Yeah, I definitely. It's Final Fantasy Rebirth. Like,
I mean, I will talk about.
I don't enjoy that game nearly as much as you, but it is a phenomenal.
You cannot fault the level of remake in this game. It is.
No, yeah, I know. It is the most remake of remakes. You know, remake out of 10. Definitely up there. And you know, for as much as I have issue with it, there's a lot of things I do love about it. Like the music's really good, visually really nice. I think the combat is absolutely phenomenal. That is kind of what keeps me going in that game.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's a great remake and a great remaster, and I think you're going to be chatting about it a lot more later on. Finally, best game with an even better soundtrack. We have Metaphor ReFantazio, Hades 2, which is technically not out, but you know what I mean.
You know.
Astrobot, Final Fantasy Rebirth, and Silent Hill 2.
I mean, I haven't listened to anything in Silent Hill 2, but I'd strike it off immediately because I can't tell you I'm jumping to Spotify to listen to some eerie...
It is good. It's very good, but I get you. It's not the sort of thing I'd listen to all the time. It is very good, though. They brought back the original composer.
I'm going for a run. Let me just put on some chill Silent Hill 2 music so I can feel like I'm running away from some monster.
Pyramid Head is coming at you if you don't stay above 5Ks a minute.
Good Lord. I mean, we kind of touched on this on the last episode, I guess, because some of these made an appearance in the best soundtrack category at the Game Awards, bar Hades 2, but Metaphor, Astrobot, and Final Fantasy Rebirth are nominees for best original soundtrack or whatever that category is called. And in that episode, I went with Final Fantasy Rebirth purely because, like, my comparison was Astrobot's good, you know, like I love the original soundtrack there, but it's not as strong to me as Metaphor and Final Fantasy. But now if I put these two side by side, like I explained, Metaphor has great music, do not get me wrong. But I know that eventually, like, there's going to be a type of dungeon I go to that'll have the same theme. The cities have, like, similar themes. The Gauntlet Runner has its own theme. Whereas Final Fantasy Rebirth has, like, something stupid, I don't know, 10 plus minus hours of music. And every area has its own unique tune. Every part of the overworld map, every little hub has its own battle theme and whatever. And it's just... there's just pure volume, and all of it's really good. That's to me, though. I mean, I don't know where you don't look convinced.
No. I am thinking, like, out of these 5, the one I've listened to the most is definitely Hades 2. You know, Darren Korb doesn't miss, but I'm willing to take it off purely because it's not done.
It's going to be there next year.
It's going to be there next year. There's more songs coming out for, you know, a lot of the new content. I do think it is. I mean, Darren Korb was on my top 5 played on Spotify this year. Like, I listen to his music so often, and I think every single game he just keeps outdoing himself. Hades 2 is no exception. Just an unbelievable soundtrack that I can't wait to, hear more of next year. But it's not done. Like, it's not finished. I think Astrobot, I'm with you in that. I think I said in the last episode, it's good. I think it hasn't been as earwormy as Playroom.
Yeah.
Like, I can recall the GPU song from Playroom. I can't really recall individual songs from this Astrobot, even though they're all pretty catchy in a sort of... They kind of meld into one another is what I find. So nothing stand out there. I know what you mean about metaphor. Like, a lot of the themes are reused a lot. I think it's also by virtue in that... No, not a bad thing. I think you are constantly in a lot of the same areas, but the music gives a lot of those areas their own theme and feel. And I think you will not find a better battle theme this year.
The battle theme's good.
The battle theme in Metaphor is unreal, and also the way it adapts according to whether you ambushed an enemy, whether you got ambushed, or you both, like, I don't know, amicably both came and said, we're going to battle now. You have like 3 different battle
shook
themes.
Hands, and then,
shook hands like, cool, we're going to do this now.
You say that, but then I will argue that Final Fantasy, like one of the core battle themes of Final Fantasy, it takes the original battle theme, but it melds it with the overworld theme of the original game in such a smart way. And like the first time I heard that, I was like, it's like, even just to take the overworld theme and then like give it, up the beats a bit and meld it with the battle theme. I was like, man, that's unreal. So these are both. We could call it a tie. I'm happy to call it a tie on these two.
No. I think your argument's a lot stronger in that. I agree with you. I think, like I was saying previously, if I had to think of the 2 things that I think Rebirth does exceptionally well, it's like its combat and its music. It falters in so many other areas that I find a bit unforgivable. But in those 2, I can't really speak shit about either of them. And, Remake, I think I return more to Remake soundtrack, but Rebirth is a soundtrack I've listened to a lot this year as well, just because, like you said, there's like 10 hours of it. It is so varied. It's got that nostalgic kick without leaning completely only on being nostalgic. And I think it's quite exceptional that they pulled it off a second time, because after Remake, I think it was a tough act to follow on that as well.
Yeah, also, last thing I'll say, it just covers a lot of genres. Like, it's not
true.
Metaphor, like, and again, like, I'm not knocking Metaphor, but it is more like, I don't know what genre it is, because you've got like that dude
it's like
chanting
fantasy
in the background. And
that battle theme is in its own fucking genre.
Yeah,
it is so cool. Like,
but then I think the Final Fantasy VII it's got everything from, the orchestral grand themes to like heavy rock to pop to, it like covers so much.
No, agreed.
Yeah.
Final Fantasy Rebirth wins.
Not a game that came out this year, but a game whose soundtrack I think is highly underappreciated, as Sea of Stars. What a great soundtrack.
Oh, really?
So good. Yeah, I love that soundtrack. That what's his name? It's Eric something. I forget the surname now. That was in my...
Has he done any other like soundtracks?
I think he's done others, but he was in my Spotify Wrapped, which I think just tells you how much I listened to that soundtrack this year. It's good. It's like
it's the one I see you playing a lot on Discord. When it's like integrating with stuff.
Good.
So yeah, cool. I cannot believe that Final Fantasy Rebirth won 2 of these categories. Absolutely.
It's almost like half of this panel was like a...
What the fuck happened? What happened?
What is going on?
Final Fantasy Rebirth wins best game with an even better soundtrack. I mean, I'm not mad about that. It's a fucking great game. So
we've got half an hour-ish, not even, to fly through our Game of the Year categories.
Oh, we got half an hour and a tiny bit. Don't you worry. We can make this work. So as usual, we've got our top 5 games each. We do this every year where we don't kind of pick a winner on either. We just want to kind of like talk about the 5 games that really made an impact on us individually. And these are ranked. So we're not copping out on that front. But I think this year, most years we've kind of like almost had the same top one. I think last year we did. I think the year prior, our first and seconds were kind of like flipped.
Yeah, but I think are quite similar.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of overlap, but I think this year we're going to have very different rankings. Yeah. No. And I think there are going to be a lot of games missing off my list that are on your list and vice versa. So.
I will say disclaimer, remember, this is like, it's not a definitive list. I could change my mind tomorrow. Just because my number one is something you don't like, and I'm not talking to you, Alessandro. I'm talking to the average listener. Please don't come for me. It's just an opinion.
No, I'm going to fucking come for you, because if Rebirth's your number one, I might actually fly to the UK. No, I'm joking.
My God, how do you know?
Okay, we're going to start from the bottom going up. I'm looking at my top 5 now, and I'm like, Jesus, I could still swap 2 and 3 here.
Do you have any special shout-outs you want to give? Or do you just have your top 5? Because that's all good.
I have my top 5. I just feel like there's not that many, like, again, a virtue of me not getting to as many games as I would have wanted this year. There's a lot, like, that I still want to play. You know what I mean? Yeah. So it can't really be a shout out there. But if I had to say anything, I'd say, like, Hades 2 is not on my list just because it's not out yet, but it's probably one of the games I played the most of this year. It's just phenomenal, and I cannot wait to play it next year. Another one would be Tactical Breach Wizards. Like I said earlier, a game that not enough people have played, but one of the funniest I played this year.
Yeah.
Great cast and just a really clever spin on that sort of like tactical action.
Yeah.
And one that's not on the list is Black Ops 6. It super surprised me at how much I enjoyed that game.
100%. Yeah. So let me rattle off my list quickly. And I'll say that the overlap we have is Black Ops 6. It's not in my top 5, but I'm just as surprised as you to go like, that was a genuinely very fun campaign to play, like unexpectedly so. But other games, Prince of Persia, The Lost Crown, we've touched on that earlier.
Not on your list?
No, not in my top 5, no.
Wild. Okay, I really thought that'd be on
good.
There. Okay.
Well, I mean, because the top 5's really good.
No, I'm just saying I'm surprised.
Surprised. Prince of Persia, The Lost Crown, like we gave it the best game that nobody's played, whatever our category is called, and rightfully so. What a fantastic game. Like, so well made, and it's sad that studio's like just been killed. So that they do not deserve that. Stellar Blade, another one where I think you put it right earlier, where critics sort of, I don't know, maybe just didn't they didn't give it a fair shake, but they were maybe a bit dismissive of Stellar Blade, like Stellar Blade. I think it's a really good looking, solid action game. Like, I thoroughly enjoyed it. Sea of Stars, mentioned earlier, not a game launched this year. I finally got it won a lot of awards last year, actually. I think it won at the Game Awards like best indie game, whatever it was, and that's what put it on my radar.
I think you're right. Yeah,
grabbed it on Switch, and like, what a great game. Good modern retro RPG game. Lies of P, another game that didn't come out this year. Finally played it this year.
I thought you played that last year. Yeah,
no, it came out last year. I played it earlier this year. Great.
I definitely should have kept that category of like best game that didn't come out this year, because you would have populated it almost entirely.
Best sequel to Bloodborne that is not called Bloodborne, because it's so many overlaps in terms of like, mechanically and visuals and just mood, but the game has its own unique things that make it stand out, like how you can like mix and match weapon parts together to make your own sort of build. It's just really cool. And I think that's it. Yeah, I said Call of Duty. So those are my 5 little spare shout-outs that did not make the cut that I really appreciated. My top 5 this year is actually, it's all games that came out this year. For a change, I think sometimes
same.
we do.
I try and keep it there, but sometimes we have overlap. I mean, my list is not. I can do what I want on my list, but this year it's games that came out this year, and only one of them I haven't finished, but the rest are like either ongoing forever games or ones that I actually kind of like got to finish a couple of times.
Last one I want to mention is Deadlock as well.
Yes,
it's not out. I think it's going to be another year or two before it's released, but I think Valve do have a good game there that I hope launches and does very well. It's pretty solid.
Do you think that'll be its final name?
I don't know. I don't see why it wouldn't be. I can't tell you what
so
the
much brand
significance
recognition
of
behind it now.
I can't tell you what the significance of Deadlock is in terms of the game, but that's what it's called in my head. It'd be a bit strange if they called it Defense of the Shooters or something else, which is not Deadlock. You want to have a game of dots with me?
Yeah. So that Valve employee definitely not taking that idea. Yeah,
no, that is the last episode. Call back to the last episode if you listen to that.
Okay.
Should we start?
I'll give it a go. Number 5. My number 5 is Helldivers 2. Is your number 5 Helldivers 2?
My number 5 is... Hang on. My number 5 is Helldivers 2.
Oh, let's go! I knew it was going to be on your list, just wasn't sure if it was maybe slightly
That is
higher.
hilarious.
Well, that works out beautifully then.
We did not coordinate this at all.
No. Helldivers 2 is, again, I think we spoke about it when we were doing the TGAs, but like a game that came out of nowhere. You know, the trailers for that game didn't really make it look like anything special. It was like, cool, we're taking the original Helldivers formula and making it a third-person shooter. And it kind of looked generic and boring and whatever. But man, that game just feels so good to play, looks phenomenal, but it just captures the absolute chaos of large-scale fights. It weaponizes friendly fire in the most comical and interesting ways.
Yeah.
And just has this array of interesting abilities and powers and weapons that you can use to both kill enemies and create absolute chaos with on the battlefield. It is the most unintentionally funny game made this year. It is so good.
I've cry-laughed so much in that game.
I've cry-laughed at other people's clips from Helldivers, from your clips, just watching over and over again. It is so funny, and I don't think you can say that for a lot of competitive shooters.
No.
Not competitive, cooperative shooters. Yeah.
I mean, my thing about Helldivers is the story of we often get review games. I know it's suffering from success. Hashtag
it's horrible.
Where,
suffering from success.
Where it is like you get a review game and it's like, I have no interest in this game, but like I should play it so we can talk about it, whatever. And Helldivers 2 was one of those games for me where we got code for it and I was like, I didn't play Helldivers 1. I know Jeff and them love it, but let me play like a couple hours so I can talk about it on our next episode. And I just did not stop playing it. I was floored. I was like, damn, this is a really good game. And this was before like there were that many reviews out, whatever. So it's like, am I alone in thinking like, am I just the outlier here? And it's like, no, Helldivers 2 is very good and a lot of people enjoyed it. Just you've ticked all the boxes. Like, what a great game. Looks good, feels good to play. And the friendly fire, it was one of those things where, again, having not played the original, going like, I wonder if I can shoot my teammates, and then shooting them by mistake, like, oh shit, okay, I can. And just the number of times it happens, because there's so much chaos going on, you know, and it makes these hilarious moments, just unintentional hilarious moments. Yeah, what a great game.
I think also it's not like you don't have to either play comically or seriously. They just kind of happen both together. I've played so many games where I'm like, we are really playing the objective. We are really trying to work as a team here. We are playing a difficulty that is definitely higher than what we should be. But there are just instances where it's like, fuck, that was stupid. Or, man, that was so funny. I can't believe that happened.
Yeah.
Can't believe that worked. It's a great game that I'm keen to get back to when I have a bit more time.
Yeah. Cool.
Number 4. Do you want to go first this time?
I can go first. Let me just timestamp here. So, my number 4. I don't know. My top 3 might surprise you. Maybe not. My number 4 is Astrobot.
Okay.
Maybe you're thinking it's a little bit lower than it should be, and it's not, just because there's some good games this year. Astrobot, I mean, we've spoken about this to death. Like, Astro's Playroom was a launch title bundled with the PS5, and everyone, I think, was saying the same thing of, man, just take this and make it a full game. Yeah. And Astrobot is that. They just took Astro's Playroom and made it a 8 to 14-hour experience, depending on if you want to platinum it or not. Just the level of polish and creativity and just joy this game produces. I think Umar had the best description he essentially said, I'm like paraphrasing terribly here, but he said something along the lines of, a game is good when it has you goofy grinning the whole time.
100%, yeah.
Spot on. 90% of the time I'm playing the game, I'm just smiling, going like, man, this is just pure joy. So yeah, really, really great game, and my number 4.
Yeah.
Is it your number 4?
I agree a lot with that, and it is not my number 4. But it is on my list. It is not number. I mean, it was close. It was close, but my number 4 is, I think, a game that you have, because you have not mentioned it in your shoutouts. Mine is Star Wars Outlaws, which is we spoke about it during the TGAs. The best 7 out of 10 game I played this year, but also just like some of the most fun I had in a game. Like Astrobot had me grinning from ear to ear. Absolutely. Star Wars Outlaws initially, I think, took some time to really warm up. I took some time to warm up to it for sure. Mm-hmm. But once I got hooked into that loop and really started exploring that world, I think it's just so much fun. Just some of the most like laid back, not think about it too hard, fun in a video game that I've had in a while. I got lost in a lot of the planets. I think that jungle planet can go get fucked. Navigating that thing was an absolute chore. I think the stealth is very underbaked. The shooting is kind of like monotonous and routine, but I think the cast of characters is really fun, and even though the stealth and shooting was simplistic, I still had a great time sneaking into an Imperial base or like a Star Destroyer and feeling like I was getting one over the stormtroopers there. It's a great game. I think that I hope we get more from that team or another shot at this, because I think there's a lot of juice to squeeze still from there.
Yeah.
But yeah, I had a good time with it.
So let me put you out your misery. Star Wars is not on my list. Star Wars Outlaws.
Really? Wasn't even a shout out.
Wasn't even a shout out. No, it's for that reason of it's a great 7 out of 10 game. Like, I enjoyed it as well, but the reason it does not appear anywhere is because, like you said, that jungle planet. I just have memories of going like,
it's horrible.
How do I navigate this place? That fucking planet, when you land there, it's like, okay, cool, now go explore the open part of this planet. I'm like, I don't know how to get there. Oh, there's a waterfall here. Let me ride off it. You die. I'm like, that is...
Yeah, that was always the most confusing thing. You got the upgrade to navigate water there basically when you were ready to leave that planet.
Yeah. And that to me is like just the design fails. Like, it's one of the first things I can see on this planet, and for all intents and purposes, like, you don't know how to get to the open world. Like here's where you go. Fly off the waterfall. It's like, oh, you died. I'm like, okay, well. So it's things like that where I agree.
Navigating a planet's an absolute disaster.
The story, like, I love the story. I love the characters, and I think that game gets way more hate than it deserves. It's not. It doesn't deserve that hate. It's honestly, like, it's a good Star Wars game for, like, in terms of Star Wars. Maybe not a good game, not the best game in terms of execution, but that's fine. Mm-hmm. Like, it doesn't have the best stealth, it doesn't have the best lots of things, but I still did enjoy playing it. But it's not in my top 5 for those reasons.
Okay.
None of my top 5 games have me yeeting off a waterfall. That is the only requirements. Like, does it have this or no? Does it? Oh no, it's off my top.
Oh, rip, not happening.
My
number 3.
My number 3. My number 3 is... I've got a timestamp for this. I want to keep you all in suspense here. What do you think my number 3 is?
I'm also thinking of the ones you haven't mentioned. So, like, I thought Star Wars would be there because you haven't mentioned it. The other one that you haven't mentioned, which I thought you would have, is Echoes of Wisdom.
That's not on my top 5 or shout out as well.
Yeah, I thought so.
Again,
let me see if I can guess. It's going to be Metaphor, or it's going to be... It's Rebirth is first, so it's not Rebirth.
You don't know that.
No, I know that. I know that. Maybe Metaphor? I'm going to guess Metaphor.
It's Metaphor. But I will say Echoes of Wisdom is a great game. Like, I loved it, but I should have given it a special shout out. Solid game, but I think it's going to be missed by a lot of people. Not for it.
It's because you don't play as Link. I get it. Yeah.
No, great game, but I think it's not a main Zelda game. So a lot of people are like, like whatever. My number 3 game is Metaphor. I think I've said it.
Fantasio.
I've said it on this podcast a lot already. Every time we've spoken about it, this to me is it's like the. It's not this, but I would call it like the golden standard for JRPGs, just because it feels like peak. Like they've taken all the learnings from decades of JRPGs and just distilled it into this perfect package where I think there's something stupid. I'm talking, but I think there's like 40 plus archetypes, something ludicrous like that.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. There's so many.
Archetypes are just like job classes. Okay, there's a great cast of characters. It's got fantastic turn-based combat, which is super strategic. You know, if you've each team, you and the enemies all have your turn to make your move, whatever. But then there are things you can do to take advantage. Like if you do a critical strike or you exploit a weakness, it only takes half of one of those little hourglass things, and you can think like very strategically from that point of view. But it works for the enemies as well. So a battle you winning can turn very quickly because an enemy lands a crit. And it just creates this great back and forth of combat and just playing through that story, learning those characters, leveling up archetypes, just getting fed them throughout the damn story. You think you've seen all the archetypes, and then they introduce a new character and there's like a whole new set of archetypes. Like, oh my God, like what haven't they thought of? It's just a really, really good game. I'm so close to being finished with it. I'm like on the last 10 hours.
How many hours are you in?
I'm 72, 73 now. And I've done everything. I've ticked off. Like I thought going into this game, oh no, it's the Persona thing. It's going to demand 100 plus hours, even if I just mainline it. I've done everything and I'm on 70 whatever hours. And now I'm doing optional bosses. And I think my playtime will be like 80 hours, which is really palatable actually for a game of this scale.
I genuinely think that without some of the improvements they made to the things you do on your off days, it would be a 100-hour game, because so much of Persona is just like hunting down where this companion is to talk to them and not being able to fast travel and stuff like that. So yeah, I think they've smoothed over a lot of, not even rough edges, because like Persona 5 felt perfect at the time, but it's like making improvements on things you didn't even think needed improvements and then sticking that. So it's fantastic game.
It really is just to me like a benchmark for what a good JRPG should be. It just ticks all the right boxes.
Oh yeah.
Even in terms of,
I can't think of a better one, honestly.
Yeah, I think completely objectively, you know, does it have this? Yes. Does it have this? Yes. It just ticks all of those boxes, and it does him so well, and it just looks good. It's so stylish.
There isn't a single turn-based RPG that does combat better than Metaphor.
No, it's really just solid, yeah.
Objectively, subjectively, like I would have that discussion with someone, but I have never played a turn-based system this refined, this good, and this also just in depth. It's fantastic. Yeah.
And I think it's not difficult to learn either. Like it's not overly
I think
complicated.
It looks overwhelming, but it's not, you know. But it stays engaging as well. Like moving, like you said, moving between archetypes, and you know, sometimes you're like, oh, I'm really comfortable with this party. I really don't want to change archetypes, but it pushes you to make those decisions. And when you do, you're like, oh, I can actually synergize in all these different ways. It's so good. Like, yeah.
What is your number 3 game?
My number 3 is Astrobot. It was my number 2 until like 10 minutes ago, and then I switched things around.
You can't do that.
Of course I can. It's my list.
You can do whatever you want.
Astrobot is fantastic. Like you said, grinning from ear to ear, from the moment you start to the moment you end. I think there isn't a single bad level in that game, despite there being so much more than Playroom. And I really enjoyed the optional stuff that got a bit more challenging, that really tested like platforming prowess, while the main levels were just like, here's this cool gimmick and some inventive ways to use it. I think it caters to such a wide audience, but also just does everything super, super well. It never feels like it's leaving anyone behind by focusing here or there. Just a wealth of great design ideas that are executed incredibly well, and I cannot wait to see more from Team Asobi going forward, because like this is a Mario that PlayStation could keep going for forever. It's so good.
It's like it took them decades. They finally have their own Mario. Like it is. It really is. I mean, you wonder how far they could push it, because like, what is the next game? I was thinking like, do they just do more Astrobot? Do they do Astrobot with multiplayer? Do they do a smaller side-scrolling spin-off Astrobot? Because they could. I would play that.
I mean, when you think about it, this takes a lot of design cues, I think, from Super Mario Odyssey, because like Odyssey is like you've got Mario that has all these gimmicks he can like interact with, except that's in more of a hub-like world instead of level-based. So, you know, I think Astrobot right now is tied to the idea of you finding these little things that make your movement or your attacks different off every level, and I'd like to see them work that into maybe something a bit more large scale. But yeah, I mean, Team Asobi has done such a phenomenal job here turning something that was like an incredibly good tech demo into an even better full-on game, which I think was hard. Like people are like, oh, just make more of it. That's really, really easy to say, but to make it as engaging as a 2-3 hour tech demo, you know, stretched over 12 hours is quite incredible. So, yeah, great game.
It's good. My number 2. I'm very sorry. Balatro. I did not put Balatro anywhere. I just realized. You know why?
Didn't even mention it.
I didn't even. Okay, I'm sorry, but Balatro deserves a shout out at the very least. You know why it's not on my list? Because it's a game that you can't like finish necessarily, so I didn't make a note of it. That is hilarious.
Helldivers is the same. What the fuck are you talking about?
Yeah, but I did make a note of it. You're right. Where's Helldivers in this? Yeah, my
Helldivers
bad.
is number 5. Okay, look, now I super don't know what your other one is.
Balatro might have made an appearance in my top 5, but at the very least, it deserves a shout out. I'm sorry, team Balatro. I just forgot about you. That is hilarious. I'm like, what do you mean? My number 2 is Shadow of the Erdtree.
Oh, duh. Forgot about that.
Would you forgot about it?
Yeah, I totally forgot about that.
Damn, hate to see it. Hate to see it. Yes, I feel so bad now. That might have shook things up a little, but you know what? I'm happy with my top 5. The Shadow of the Erdtree it's just more Elden Ring, and I think I don't know if I mentioned it this episode or last episode, but it really just takes that existing formula. It plugs a whole new explorable area into the huge Elden Ring world, introduces more memorable bosses, some new weapons, new story beats. Just in terms of design, it's weird because it feels like I can't think of like a good comparison, but there are so many. Think of the entirety of Elden Ring, how you go from like, you know, Limgrave, which is your normal sort of biome, to eventually like the snowfields, and you've got the lava. I can't think of the name, like Volcano Manor, whatever the hell it's called.
Yeah, I think you're right, actually.
Shadow of the Erdtree, it's a much smaller map, but it still ticks off so many biomes, but in different ways. Like you walk 5 minutes that way, you're in a whole new area. You walk 5 minutes that way, a different area, and they're all varied, different to what you see in the base game. There's a whole lot of new enemies. It's just more Elden Ring, and I mean, it's a DLC, for goodness sake. I think my playtime was like 40-50 hours, and that wasn't like just 20 hours dying to bosses. That is a lot of just exploring, ticking off every area I could find, trying to find every boss, and yeah, I just thoroughly enjoyed it. That last boss, I don't think they're as hard as some of the other bosses, but super challenging.
I think the biggest task from Software there was trying to recapture the magic of exploration and wonder that Elden Ring had, and by all accounts, like I haven't played it yet, but you know, hearing about it from you multiple times, it definitely feels like they recaptured that, which is super, super challenging, and I think that's why they're also not too keen to dive into a sequel just yet, because I think it takes a lot of work to structure and build a world that feels organic and rewarding to explore in a way that Elden Ring does. So I'm glad that it stuck the landing there for a DLC that took, you know, 2+ years to make. For all intents and purposes, it feels like a whole new game. It's just as long, if not longer, than a Dark Souls. It is almost double the time of a Bloodborne. You know, it is a big project to be just DLC.
Yeah, so look, it never reaches the same heights of Elden Ring, but that's no fault of its own, because Elden Ring was just so novel at the time. It's the same thing.
Elden Ring is a genre-defining game.
Yeah,
like it is.
But it's the same thing as like not quite the same, but Tears of the Kingdom and Breath of the Wild, where like Tears of the Kingdom is a better game, like don't get me wrong, but it doesn't have the same like aha of like you exploring everywhere because you've kind of been everywhere in Breath of the Wild already. And this is a similar thing of it's just more Elden Ring, and it's not a bad thing.
Yeah. No, I fully understand what you mean, and I wish I'd played it by now because I think it probably would have ranked on my list as well. But yeah, it sounds great, and I can't wait to get to it. I'm very excited. My number 2. It's gonna haunt you.
It will haunt you. What's your number 2?
My number 2 is Metaphor ReFantazio. I have not finished this game. I'm probably only around like maybe halfway. Who knows?
How many hours are you in?
It's just about 30 plus. I'm infiltrating the flying.
You're about
like where you have to get keys for every floor. Yeah. Okay, I'm trying to not give away, but
maybe just shy of halfway. But you're around there.
It's so good, and I think what's interesting is that it's on your list as someone who's new to this format of game, and also on mine as someone who I feel is quite well versed on the stuff that Atlas does with Persona. And, Persona 5 took me 2 years to finish just because it's like on, off, 100, I think it was like 120 hours by the end of it. And that game was like phenomenal.
Yeah.
I think Metaphor ReFantazio makes it so difficult to go back to that, which is it just floors me that that's the case because its combat is so much more refined. Its exploration it's removed a lot of the friction in, using your days wisely and, knowing how to use that time wisely. I think its story is fantastic. They've taken like a high fantasy setting and injected it with sometimes very on the nose, but often very poignant, like socio-political questions. It's just a good game all around. One of the best casts of characters this year, and probably the best character in Heismei. Just an unreal character who goes through. I mean, even now, I'm only maybe halfway, 2/3 through his arc, and it's just like every single moment I get to spend with that little dude, that little rat dude. He's so good. Like, just phenomenal voice acting on his side and just an incredible story to follow. So, yeah, I'm itching to play more and more of this. It is a game that I find it's difficult to come back to when you've stayed away for like a week to kind of remind yourself, what were you focusing on? What were you trying to do? But I mean, that's exactly how I played Persona 5 and I ended up like adoring it by the end. So I have no doubt that that's going to be the same for me.
I never touched on it, but the day system is something that's new to me. And going into this game, I was like, oh my God, like this is a level of stress I don't need. I want to have to like plan my days, whatever. But I think it gives you more than enough time to tick everything off. Like I said, I've done everything. And like I've got all my kingly virtues up, whatever. And it wasn't through like, I didn't follow a guide or I wasn't strict on myself. I was just did things I wanted to do. And the game just gives you enough time to tick all the boxes off. But it also introduced a new thing I'm not familiar with where like in Final Fantasy, for comparison's sake, like you'll go through a dungeon, then there's a bench before the final boss to like replenish your MP and your health. Metaphor doesn't let you do that. It's like, nah, fam, you only replenish your stuff when you like go home and rest for the day. So there's that whole other aspect I'm unfamiliar with. Like the first dungeon, that cathedral, getting halfway through and going like, I'm out of like MP here. Like shit, I think I'm gonna have to go back and rest. And you don't have to do that with every dungeon, but it's another thing to consider. And it's just clever. It forces you to think very strategically of how you're just throwing your spells and doing your things, you know?
So. And I think it adds another wrinkle to the combat, like you said, because it's like, I could just spam all these magic attacks and definitely get past these enemies, but if I don't want to waste a day or if I want to optimize my way through this dungeon, what's the most effective way to take these enemies down while minimizing health lost, but also minimizing wasteful MP usage? And like, that sounds super complicated and super overwhelming and like, I don't want to engage with all of that, but it comes by so naturally. And I think that's what Metaphor does better than most other Persona games, which felt punishing in that regard. Especially because previous Persona games didn't really surface good things to do on every day. And so you wasted a lot of time or wasted a lot of days in those games that caused a lot of undue stress. So I think that's why Metaphor's also just clicked with a lot more people that haven't really got into Persona. You know, it's the setting change, the character change, and then also the just like how it approaches its game design. I think it's super, super refined. And yeah, I love it. I really do.
Good. Well,
last games here on the list, our games of the year.
Well, I know what yours is, but I'll start with mine. Is anybody shocked by the fact that it's Final Fantasy VII Rebirth? Is my number one.
No,
I mean,
not at all.
I'll be the first one to say that I know this game is not perfect. Like it has its flaws. It's got, you know, the Ubisoft open world checkbox thing, which I did not expect. But in the same breath, I did not know how they were going to pull off an open world Final Fantasy following Remake. Because Remake, you can kind of get how they pulled it off because, you know, it's the first chapter of the original game. It's in Midgard. It's like very contained. But what is the next step of that? What is the evolution of that? And while I think they stumbled, you know, in a lot of the open world stuff, they still pulled it off. They brought the original game to a modern audience, and there's a lot of like winks and nods to original players. So people like me playing, I mean, I had many moments in this game where I just sat as like, I cannot believe this game exists. Like, I cannot believe I'm living in a reality where they've remade one of my favorite games of all time and given it such like love and care, you know, in terms of how the characters are, how they've been recreated, how some of the areas have been recreated. Like it's interesting playing the game, knowing where you're going or what you're gonna do, and like just having that excitement of like, oh, I can't wait to go to Cosmo Canyon where Red's from, and then seeing it come to life and going like, holy shit. Like, I think one thing that blew me away is that the level of size they put into this game, or scale, sorry, is a better term. Like you've done June on the with the parade and everything.
The airship, yeah. That
area is massive. Like it's a lot of these areas are like throwaway in the original game where it's like a couple screens, whatever. Like maybe that's not the best example, but in June on here, it's like it's this massive, huge, sprawling place. I mean, the better example is probably Calm, the first city you start in. In the original game, that was like a one screener with some buildings you could go into. But think of the scale of the city. It's like this massive, sprawling, just side little city you start in. And they carry that throughout the whole game. Like, Gone Gaga is another one where Zach's from. In the original game, it's like one little village. Here, it's this massive, huge space to explore. And they've just really expanded the game in huge ways that I really appreciated, despite its flaws. Like, I know there's a lot to be said, like the story does or doesn't do this, or it changes this or doesn't change this. And that's, you know, you're not going to get every fan to agree. Like, that's just, I think, the challenge Square faced from day one. But I love this game. Like, I'm glad it exists, and I hope they take learnings from this and they finish strong with the last game. Like they go, oh, like, okay, people didn't really vibe with all the open world checkbox stuff. Like, let's keep it open world, but streamline it, whatever.
So. Yeah, I mean, it's well known now if you listen to the show that I don't hold the game in as high regard as you, but I do think the things that it does exceptionally well. I really respect this team for taking swings at a game that they could have played super safe. And I think that's what I respect a lot about Remake and what I think Rebirth does very well. Like you said, the story stuff, they're not changing it for the purposes of being controversial. They're trying to weave something that kind of skirts the lines of, you know, one reality to another, Remake versus the original. It's very meta, and I find very interesting. And I think a lot of people are like, oh, it's so, you know, it's so up its own ass in that regard. I find it fascinating.
Yeah.
And I do think that this is some, you know, a springboard for them to improve in the last chapter in terms of like the open world stuff. But I think, you know, like you said, it takes these small areas that you have in your mind and expands them in a way that makes, you know, almost like how your imagination filled in the blanks when you were playing it on PS1. That's what they've done here
100%,
and realized it completely. And that's no small feat. And I think that should be applauded. So, yeah, I think that's a well-deserved game of the year for you.
What's mind-blowing for me is that I thought this game would have ended a lot further in story compared to the original. But looking at what's going to be part 3 Obviously, I'm like, holy shit! They have so many areas to get to that they haven't even touched in this game. So I'm like, it's that third game's gonna be bigger. So like, I can't believe even say, because I thought the bulk of the original game is like this middle part, right? And then the third part is like revisiting areas, ticking off whatever. But there are parts in this game you haven't visited yet. I'm like, damn, okay, so they've saved a lot for that third game.
I do hope that refocuses them a little bit.
I also hope so.
Yeah, I think Remake and Rebirth have really had a good time stretching out these small areas and making them a lot larger. If they've got all this content to fit into the final one, they kind of need to be like, cool, what are the important beats? What are the not so important beats? Let's like hone in on this. And I think that's what they will do. And I think that's why it will probably be very, very good.
I mean, in a perfect world, I'd almost imagine like just a baby between Remake and Rebirth, where I wanted the focus of Remake, where it is like, Midgar is huge, but it's still like very focused and almost linear and how it like navigates you through the story. It would be cool if they kept some of the, like, make it open world but not less checkboxy stuff. Like, let you run through the open world and do stuff on the way, but don't do it like Ubisoft Towers. Whatever.
Yeah.
So we'll see.
Yeah, I'm excited. I think I am going to finish Rebirth. I will get to it. But I think, the way you've spoken about it, the way Umar's spoken about it, I'm glad that people have connected with it in the way they have, especially with the high bar that Remake set, to see it surpassed in many ways with Rebirth while taking a new approach to its format is, it's really good and it should be applauded. And I think it's going to win a lot of awards at a lot of different websites this year, which it deserves.
Well, this brings us to your number one, which can only be one game that I forgot about.
Pretty much. Balatro is my number one game of the year, purely because it's the game I've purchased 3 times this year. It is an absolute addiction of mine.
Take this man's card away.
There's 3 instances this year where it has taken over my life. I don't think I've become as hopelessly addicted as some people, but every time I play it, I'm just having a really, really fun time. I think it took a long time for me to adjust in my brain that, yes, this has got the veneer of poker, but it is not a poker game.
Not poker,
and actually playing it as if you're trying to get the best hands in poker makes you lose more and more frequently. The way it breaks the idea of how important a pair is, or a high card is, or a 2 pair is I think so smart from a game design perspective. And then you've got the Joker cards that alter every run that are just, they change the game in such insane ways. The best sort of game like this in a roguelike or a deck builder is when you stumble upon combinations that feel like you're getting one over the game. Like you're breaking it in a way that it was never intended, even though it is giving you the building blocks to do that. So it's obviously at some level expected, but like scoring obscene multipliers with one hand never ever gets old. You know, when you're on a run where every single ante you're tackling is just so easy because you've broken it on like round 3 or 4, only to get to a point where it's like, oh god, I need to start thinking again. It's a great like middle ground to find. I think this is why games like Vampire Survivors tickle the same sort of parts of people's brains. It's just a stupidly well designed game from a developer who's like, this is their debut game that they've put out. Never expected it to be this big, and it's become this absolute phenomenon throughout the year. And I think I'm going to be playing this game for months, if not years to come, because it's on my phone.
It's a good formula.
Great formula for me to pick up and play half an hour, 1 or 2 runs with. And it's a game that I think a lot of people have gotten behind. I've got like a bunch of people I work with to purchase it and give it a go who aren't like super into games, but they understand cards and they understand
regular
roguelites.
meth dealer, hey? Just Archer.
Yeah, quite literally just giving them one hand to play and they're like, wait a minute, this is actually quite intoxicating. It's great. It's from its presentation. I hear that weird spooky
let me just close my eyes and imagine it's there. It's just the one track and you never get tired of it.
It's so good. It just loops in the background. You've got the like CRT like filter on the visuals. It's a really special game, and I hope it gets the accolades it deserves in a lot of year-end lists. But in any case, it's made its creator a shitload of money. Not in Matthew's, because he's uncultured, clearly. it's made its creator a lot of money. He deserves it because it's just an insanely well-designed game. So the sort of game that you look at, you're like, fuck, why did I not think of that? Why did someone else not think of that?
100%. So talking to Lenska about Game of the Year nominees, and I said, like, it's Astro and Final Fantasy and Balatro, and she's like, what's it? I was like, remember that card game I played on Switch? I was obsessed with it. She's like, how is that a Game of the Year nominee? Like, not in a condescending way, like, educate me. Like, why does that deserve
why is
to
this
be?
card game so
and
good?
I said exactly that. It's like, it took such a simple idea. It took poker and it just changed some of the rules and made a whole different game out of it that looks nothing like poker. It just uses
pretty much like
it just uses the cards as like the foundation.
That's it.
And it's exactly that of like, it's such a simple idea. Honestly, like when you think about it, you go, how did no one think about this before? How did nobody think to just make like a deck building roguelite with the poker cards as like and poker hands is sort of the foundation for it. Then you like, I sit and wonder like, well, what's next? Is somebody going to take like, I don't know, chess or some other classic game and like build something out of it? Because I'm sure people are now thinking, well, how do I make my own Balatro? What is the next Balatro? It's so smart. And I think the best thing is like, I think it takes a couple runs to like really get used to or like understand how to play the game. But you don't have to know a thing about poker to play this game.
Absolutely.
Like, it helps to know poker hands, but even then, like, they explain it to you. You've always got like a thing you can pull down and it explains like what hands are worth, whatever.
I sometimes find knowing poker is more detrimental because you have to like kind of break your habits on what you think is how to play poker correctly. You're right. It's just got such wide appeal and it's simple. It's one of those ones simple to pick up, simple to master in some aspects, but enough depth there that it's just as engaging the 10th, 20th, 30th hour as it was the first. And I think you're right. You are going to see it is a genre defining thing where like you see a lot of games coming out now that are called Vampire Survivor likes, even though Vampire Survivors wasn't the first game of that kind. It is the one that people latched on. And you're going to see Balatro likes, like you're going to see headlines where it's like, this is Balatro, but with X, you know what I mean? So yeah, I think for all of that, it deserves to be one of the best games of this year, and it is the game, like I said, I've played probably the most of this year, and I will continue to do so for months and years to come.
For years. So, my great grandkids, like
I'll pass it on.
Puppy, what is your final wish? Like, give me a phone, Balatro.
Let me open up the App Store real quick.
One more run. One more run before I enter the white lights.
Before I too become a joker.
I know. I just put your hand in front of your camera. You're looking a bit blurred there.
Oh no,
reason.
It's because Abby was coming in with her tail
go.
And defocusing the camera.
Oh, damn. There you go.
That is Game of the Year 2024. I was going to say 5, not that yet.
It was a good year for games.
I think so too. I think there's been a lot of things said like, oh, this wasn't as strong as previous years, and to a degree, I get that. A lot of things that you expected to hit hard didn't hit as hard, but I think the games that were good were exceptionally good. In many big ways, they would have been Game of the Years in other years, themselves. So we've got a solid, I think, top 5 for each of us here, and I'd be curious to hear what other people listening, what your top 5 is. So if you've got a list or you just want to shout out something that you think is great, you can send that through to the emails. You can pop it on Spotify. And while you're on Spotify, if you do listen, just give us a little rating there. It helps. Helps push us. Spotify's SEO is so friggin' weird. So whatever you think will help the show, go for it. It probably helps.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. It's been a great year. I've thoroughly enjoyed doing podcasts again this year. I know it's been a sporadic like timeline, especially with the way we slowed down and ramped up and slowed down, but it's been a busy year, and I think we've made space for this to continue being in our lives.
It's a good middle ground where it doesn't consume our weekends, but we can still get together every second or third week and talk about stuff we like talking about. So thank you for all your time this year.
Absolutely, thank you as well. And I think it's great that we can still have discussions about games on our terms, and that's enabled by everyone who listens.
Yeah.
So thank you for joining us this year. We hope you have fantastic holiday season.
Yeah.
Get some
all
well-deserved rest at the end of the year.
Backlog games ticked off.
Yep. Best games to play in 2025. Don't let it be your backlog. I don't know.
Oh my God. What's going on here?
It's the heat. It's getting to my brain.
It's just getting to you, no.
I'm dying. Thank you so much, as always, for all the support in 2024. We will be back early next year. Until then, stay safe. Have a good time wherever you spend the holidays. And we'll see you then. Goodbye.
Goodbye.